Well. Captain's quarters intercom. MedCorps here today. I got LaShawn. LaShawn, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your time. Really, LaShawn. He, I know him a little bit. We've talked a couple of times on the phone. Once really far back in time. I don't even know how when I was first getting introduced to this business, and he was one of the guys that were also working alongside with Ryan Alexander. And Ryan Alexander's the guy that pretty much introduced me into this whole health business. If everybody doesn't know, I'm talking about like the whole Wallach's Warriors, the whole Dr. Wallach program, basically, and it changed my life. And I immediately had to start connecting with other people that were getting the same results and stuff. And you know, LaShawn and I have talked a lot about specifically marijuana, and this is the big topic that I want to get into today.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But yeah, first off, I just wanted, I mean, I don't have like your full like background right off the top of my head, so I want you to just like, yeah, just tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you do?
what do I do? So, basically, I'll just, go to the high school part because that's like the most relevant. Uh, I started off, acting. I started acting like since I was in elementary school and I got training for it. And then, fast forward into high school, I started doing football, but then I don't know, acting kind of like it was at the time I was kind of embarrassed to act. So I would do acting, like extracurricular, and then high school football. And then it just went to where I just joined a magnet program and actually started like it was a magnet program for acting. And that's how I got connected to my college, went to college, got in like the BFA class. It's like the elite. They like select 16 sophomores every year. And that's when my health just went down, 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 down. And so I got sick, had to do a medical withdrawal. Um, and yeah, that's basically what started my Wallach Warrior career. Uh, it's funny because I never found Wallach Warriors myself. I did not find Dr. Wallach. It was actually my mom, and there was some random lady. She was selling Z Radical to people, like just Z Radical, nothing about the 90s. She just sold Z Radical. And
Hmm.
my mom was telling me about it because, I was starting off. It was like the time that I was really, really sick. I just got diagnosed, and I was just trying out different things that then I wasn't really, I didn't know how to navigate my disease at the time. But what happened was I was like what is this? Like, why do you keep getting it from this lady? She seems so sketchy. That's why. And so I looked into it. I was like trying to disprove um Wallach, Dr. Wallach, because all I knew of him was the Z Radical. And so I went on Instagram and I found Wallach Warriors. I was like, you know what? I'm about to expose this whole industry. And so that's when I met Ryan, and then gave me a full protocol. Uh and I started watching his videos. The biggest draw to me was the Q&As, because I was like, how can this man just sit here and do like what seemed like 100 Q&As a day in the same consistent way, just like always providing a enthusiastic answer, well in depth. Anytime you texted him about a question that you had, um, you already know it's just paragraphs. You save those, you learn to save those paragraphs and accumulate them over time. um but I'll tie it into cannabis in a second. I
No
in
worries.
college.
Just go through. Just keep. You're doing good.
Oh, okay. So yeah, basically, yeah, Ryan gave me all of this stuff, and I started off doing subtitling for Ryan, and that took most of my day, and that was amazing for me because uh sitting at home, like once you were in college and you're doing all this stuff every day, and then you go home and you're just sitting there doing nothing, sitting in your own thoughts, watching all your friends. Like, this is when college for me was supposed to be like ramped up. It was I was getting to know people. I was starting to like have people come up to me. I had no idea who they were, but they knew about me.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, I started feeling myself a little bit. Because I was like, yes, my work is paying off. And so when I got home and after like 2 or 3 tries of me trying to get back into school, not gonna lie, I fell into like a bit of a depression because it was like I spent like 15 years of my life training for acting and I can't even go back to do what I'm trained, like what I've been trying to do my whole life, what I felt was my life purpose. And so uh yeah, that's basically how I got started. And so I started doing the subtitling. I lost my place. Started doing the subtitling, and then we did videos. I started editing videos for Ryan, and working in his his DMs basically. And I don't know about you, but I was scared at first. I was like, what am I gonna do? I don't have anything to say. And I remember like that, and then like a week after that, he was like, "Yeah, man, come on and join me for the Q&As." I was like, "What?" like like the live. I was like, "Oh my god!" I remember I was so nervous, and like he was like, "Hey, hurry up, man," because I was like taking forever to like film the video. I was so nervous about how I would come across to people because I kept saying around, I was like, man, I'm like 20 years old. I have this like childish voice. Like, I don't know. I got the biggest Adam's apple, but like, seems like my voice did not get any deeper. And so, like, just like, I was so nervous. But one thing that I learned, and it was a simple thing. Um, One thing Ryan preached, one thing that I went to school for, and they preached the same thing, was repetition. That's all. You get better at repetition. You don't, if you're worried about how you look on the first couple of times and you're messing up, like that's the whole point of it. You're supposed to mess up. That's how you learn. But I feel like everybody wants to look like they they know it all on that first moment, that first like, that first initial introduction of whatever you're trying to do. And um one lesson that I took from Ryan was just the repetition. And a lot of people still ask Ryan to this day, or anybody that's like asks me about like how I know all of this information. I'm just like, repetition. You can't just watch something once. You have to, how many times I watched the same lectures over and over again, all of those subtitling of the videos, that was all repetition for me. And I absorbed it like a sponge. And it was so easy. Like I was just spilling out information that I had no idea that I had in my head.
Yeah,
And
I want to know these captions. Did you have to do like the old style captions where you like had to do every single sentence and edit them into? Oh my God, I do not do that. You know, I automatically do that with the captions app now, but
Mhm.
that probably didn't exist back a year ago even. But
Well, it wasn't cheap at all. That was in the AI, it just wasn't there. It was horrible, man. Like sometimes the formatting would just like mess up in the middle of the video, and you got to start over the whole video again. It was, I mean, I found a way to work around it, obviously, but that was like the most complicated part. But I feel like at the same time, if anybody is trying to learn stuff, like if I have classes on this ever, I'm going to say you need to subtitle these videos. I'm going to give them like a bunch of videos to subtitle because you're learning. You're learning so much as you type these words. You're typing it, you're watching the typing, you're seeing the words, you're replaying the video over and over again to make sure the audio and the words align. Like you're doing so many different modalities of repetition that it's like that's a gold mine. That's like so golden. And then when you get your own thing, and there was a time when I got my own thing and I was like, okay, I'm not subtitling anymore. It's like taking up way too much of my day. And yeah. So yeah, I would say like if anybody's starting off, always try to do something that's going to give you repetition where you're killing 2 3 birds with one stone. Um and go from there.
it was
Yeah.
exciting seeing you actually. I remember seeing the Q&A sections that you did
Hmm.
on that, and you know, that kind of really inspired me to start doing that. And I don't know if you've seen that um, on Ryan's Q&A. Similar story. Ryan was super open. He gave me the access to the Wallets Warriors account. I was like, damn, you know, I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm actually a part of this now, and I'm actually connected
Mhm.
with Ryan. And like Ryan is kind of like a celebrity in my eyes, even though he's, it's not like he's got millions of followers, but I know he was like, I felt, something just, he's gonna be big one day, but it's, you know, such a surreal experience. I could just remember, just like being on my knees. I'm like, thank God.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
thank, just, but then, about the same time, I feel like he waited maybe like 2 weeks or something. I don't really know. It was probably a year ago, and I'm not sure. Um, he wanted me to hop on the Q&As because he was traveling. Yeah, that's what he
Hmm.
was, and he wanted me to do the Q&A. And this is when he was doing it for only like 3 times a week or something like that. I can't remember, but now he does it 5 times a week, and that's what I do too. Um, but first time getting on that, I mean, that was really nerve wracking. I mean, and you're right. You want to look professional, and
Hmm.
you're not going to be professional in your first time. Not close. I mean,
It seems
that's
like the
the whole
more you try,
process.
the less professional you look. Actually, you just look like trying, you look exactly how you are trying not to come across, you know? You're like you trying to look professional. You look like you're trying to look professional instead of just being, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that's something that I also don't like for podcasts too. Like when there's like a official structure, like I don't really care. I'm like, I'll just kind of have a conversation with somebody, and it usually flows pretty well.
mhm.
uh, the more that it seems like you're just talking to a person, like even in these Q&As, like I've been so adapted into reaching out to my audience, and actually
Good.
being involved with this whole business is just, it's so powerful, just having the results yourself. And even though I'm not like 100% cured or whatever, uh way such a better life. I mean, I before
Yeah.
this, I we can go into our testimonials and stuff. We
Okay.
can go anywhere with this talk. But anyway, I mean, before I was suffering with IBS. I mean, timid personality, suicidal depression, rampant anxiety, confusing thoughts, and all that stuff. I had back pain I was going through. I mean, there's so many little symptoms that I could go through on top of that. Like, yeah, I feel like I had like a early stage of hypothyroidism even.
Yeah.
you know I,
Wow.
I was going kind of a health nut for a little bit before I met Walks Warriors, and I went into the whole organic eating. And this is, I went to organic because I saw people like connecting consciousness on Instagram, or some of those bigger channels that
Hmm.
are like into conspiracy topics and stuff. They're telling you how the water's being poisoned, the food's poisoned, everything's poisoned. It's just kind of negative information. They would give you then at the end of the video chalk supplements, adaptogenic
Yeah.
mushrooms. I'm like, I gotta get me some mushrooms. So I went on,
Yeah.
I went on that for about 6 months, and just kind of figuring stuff out. I worked at an organic farm for a while.
That's
Uh,
cool. What
yeah,
the
yeah.
heck?
I did a
Dang.
every single Wednesday we would just go, and I didn't really have too many friends getting out of high school, and all
Mhm.
my friends kind of just like left. They went their own separate ways and everything. So I was just stuck with meeting new people, and for the most part, it was a lot of older people actually at this farm. I mean, that was the first place. There's a couple of younger fellas there, but the people that are on farms are practically kind of like cut off from society. I hate to like bash farmers or anything, but they're different people. They're um, even living in the country. I just have to say, much more of like a family, and it's really cool. I was immediately introduced. Everybody was super friendly, and got to know everybody's names pretty fairly quickly. First job, first task doing there was just packing peas into a bag and weighing them. That was pretty cool.
Dang.
Uh, at the end they give you you'd volunteer for about 4 hours or something like that, and then they give you a vegetable box. So you get like a bunch of organic vegetables, straight from the farm. That's the best source of. I mean, if anybody wants like fresh vegetables, that's the best
Mhm.
way to source. I mean, even picking up like organic stuff from the grocery store, I mean, the farm transported to the grocery store. The grocery store does some stuff with it. Who knows what happens there? But the farm, being connected like that was just like, it was a staple. I started making uh, tons of organic salads and stuff like that, and that's like the only thing I would eat. I'd eat the brown
Mhm.
rice noodles, and I didn't really know about the starch back then, so I thought it was a really healthy food. I I never salted any of my meals. Like I mean, I neglected salt a lot. I didn't really know
Yeah.
much about it, anything about salt. So I'd say I was very salt deficient this time, and that's what I had like this thyroid thing going on. I was like, my voice is very very. I don't know if this is a thing, but my voice was very like hoarse. Just like
Mm.
very soft, I guess, and I would I would eat things like cruciferous vegetables, cauliflower,
Ooh.
broccoli. These things would give me low energy. I'm like, what's going on? This is vegetables.
Yeah, thought I was doing good, man. Yeah,
Like,
that's crazy. That's crazy because I felt the exact same way. And people used to tell this is kind of embarrassing, but I don't care. It's past. But I remember when I used to get on the phone and talk to doctors, my voice was so like soft that they'd be like, because my name is already LaShawn. So like people, anything with a la in front of it, they're like, oh, it's probably a woman. I don't know. They kind of, you know how like some names they just add the la to make it a girl name, like a feministic name. But I remember so many times that I would be on the phone talking to these people and they're like, okay, 1 second, ma'am. I'm like, excuse me.
oh my, I had
And
to laugh.
so, yeah, no, because it was funny. It was, of course, I was pissed at first, but it was funny because I was like, dang, I gotta,
Don't
like,
flush.
I remember I had to, like, I was like, I gotta do something about that. So you're not the only one. That was definitely something that I experienced as well. But I was also on a lot of steroids. So I felt like my hormones were already out of balance and such. But yeah, I didn't mean to
Was that
interrupt.
no, no?
Mhm.
Was that before the you got on the program? You're on steroids?
Yeah, prednisone. I was on like this is a lot, but like 60 milligrams a day. And then I would taper down. I would always have to taper down. And it just messed you up. Like I'm still feel like I'm recovering from it because your face gets puffy. You get back knee, and it's just like you eat so much. And for my condition, that was not good. I was always hungry. It would always cause anxiety, and it always lead me back into like an endless cycle of um, just eat to feel better and full, satiated, which you never were. And then you got to deal with the consequences of eating all of that, and your system cannot clearly handle it. And so, no matter what I ate, it was always like something that would bring me back into that same spot. And I'm like, I don't know. It was just, it was like the most annoying thing. Um, that like I can't explain it, but like it was just like that was also like a dark time too because I was getting the only joy that I got was from eating, and
Mhm.
I couldn't eat. So it's like you try to get like the best joy you can by eating something, but it's either the food is trash or you get something and you're gonna pay for it, you know? So that was that moment when I was like, okay, something's gotta change, something like I gotta do something. And that's when I got into the salt flush too, as well. So like my family has a history of high blood pressure, so everybody was avoiding salt. I remember I threw it away. I was eating eggs one time and I salted it too much. I got so scared. I threw the whole dish away because I was like, I don't know how this salt is gonna affect me. I'm already sick, so like I don't want to get like the dangers of salt, because I was still in that delusion. But um that definitely obviously changed when I met Ryan and did that salt flush. I didn't really, I told you about it. I don't really do the salt flush. I like eat the salt and then drink the water. But because I like the Celtic rock salt. And so I'll just like take a spoonful, eat it, and then knock back some water and call it a day.
Yeah. So have you done the 3 tablespoon salt flush?
Oh yeah, that was
Yeah.
that was I wasn't I would say I actually it was Ben Fuchs. Ryan and Ben Fuchs were talking on his early podcast in Anchor. That's when I originally started consuming salt. I didn't really know there was like an official salt flush until I asked. So I wasn't as salt deficient. Like it wasn't, how some people can just drink the whole glass. I couldn't drink the whole glass, but I kind of got the point. I was like, yeah, I'd been upping my salt immensely. And it's been helping. More energy. I recommend it for anybody.
Yeah. Was there like an I mean, immediate result with as soon as you did the salt flush?
Mm, I would say the one thing that I noticed that really solidified that Wallach, Dr. Wallach knows what he's talking about, Ryan knows what he's talking about, was that the cravings went away. Like if I ever, there was one point where I was only eating bone broth. I had to do a bone broth fast for like 2 weeks just to see if I can like get some type of healing. And I would get these cravings. And what I would do, I would just eat salt, like eat some salt and drink a little bit of water. And anytime I had those cravings, and it went away. So that was the one thing that went away for me was the salt. Not the salt cravings, but just having cravings all day disappeared.
That's something actually I get too. But the first I was extremely deficient in salt. I was extraordinarily terrible at reading before I got into Wallach's whole deal.
Mm-hmm.
But I was actually doing the full protocol, the quitting the bad foods and then taking the full nutrition for I'd say my first like month or two. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
do the salt flush. I didn't touch salt or whatever. I was just taking the nutrients. But when I did the salt flush, that that was I remember the day that I mean it was woke up in the morning. I heard it best to do it in the morning because you're usually going to be on the toilet for about an hour.
Yeah.
It's you can be throwing up too, but I find that if you just drink enough water, you never throw up. For at least for me, but you drink a lot of water with the salt flush. You put 3 heaping tablespoons into about the size of a glass jar or something like this. That's what I use. It's actually a salt flusher, but I I drank. I don't even know how much I drank. It was more than half for sure of that glass.
Dang.
Someone
Wow.
that showed that, and some people can drink like 4 of them. I've heard Ryan has people like four, like that's 15 tablespoons, heaping
Yes.
tablespoons. That's crazy. And people telling you to lower salt. I mean, we require so much. But anyway, took that salt flush. I had the most clear mind I've ever had in my life. I've always had like this confusing bubble around my head, and there's all these birds of the mind just flapping their wings everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody actually just recently tried this. Her name starts with a V, but I'm not going to say names here. But
Yeah.
she's one of my clients, and so she told me she did the salt flush, and so it was like a veil had been lifted from her eyes. Like that's exactly how I would describe it. It's like it was so the most amount of focus, energy, like you said, like energy to actually hold conversations and be involved with life. Really, I mean, I can be so just depressed and caught off guard in an anxiety bubble if I don't have enough salt. Even today, if I don't have enough salt today, I'm gonna get in a bad mood. It's so critical for me. Salt
Hmm.
is by far, like, I always thought for myself, like, this is a blood sugar problem, but blood sugar problems also seem very closely related into
Hmm.
hydration. So yeah, it's totally a thing. If you're for people that have blood sugar problems, and you know they're on the program for a little bit, you didn't do the salt flush, I recommend it. This goes for any diabetic. uh, we're assuming you're having a digestion problem.
Hmm.
If you diabetes, probably overweight, and overweight digestion problem. Yeah, it's gonna help anybody. And I mean, I even people that are regularly consuming salt, I recommend it for anybody. You know, the body requires so much. I mean, I'm drinking so much water, and one thing I guess we can go tie this into the subject.
Hmm.
So every time that I've realized that, so I'm a weed smoker myself. I've been smoking weed since I was 16. As soon as I turned 16, I got my driver's license. Bam, I was smoking in a mall parking lot, and then we went inside. It was pretty funny, but it was a pretty cool experience. First time ever getting high. Your first time getting high is there's nothing compared to the rest of it. It's so different. I'd have to say that it's such a outer body experience
Yeah.
in a way that I felt when I mean I was walking to my driveway. I would be talking to my friend, and it felt like I was over here
Yeah.
conversating with my. It was so weird. It was like I was outside or something. But it was a really cool experience. Obviously, I wasn't healthy at all, and I was eating like Doritos and Doritos. Oh my,
Yeah.
that's like an explosion in your mouth. But I mean,
I used to do like the Dorito nachos. I used to get Doritos and get the turkey meat and get the Kraft cheese, the America cheese, put that all in. That's why I got messed up, obviously. But yeah, that was like
yeah, a lot of
it's
my
like a you're like, wow, this is amazing.
yeah, I feel like that's a lot of my digestion problems. That's where it came from when I was just eating a lot at night, and that's. I mean, I wish I would have known about salt back then, but I can tell.
Yeah.
This is where salt ties in with marijuana. It's like, um, so I guess I kind of skip a lot, but I started back then, and obviously, I'm not smoking all the time. Yeah, I don't regularly do it in the morning or anything like that. I usually tend to just keep it out of my practice altogether because I don't want to, be whatever. I don't even care. I don't have the time to do it in the morning. Is what I guess I'm trying to say. Like I don't even care to take the time to like it. I'm
Yeah,
just so
it's not that
undeveloped.
serious.
Yeah, I'm so undeveloped with my work, and it's not like you're
Mhm.
getting drunk on the job or something. I can still give a very good advice when I'm. It's a lot different than what a lot of people think that have never used it before. It's so subtle. I mean, the first time. I mean, obviously, if you smoke a whole joint, I mean, yeah, you're gonna be pretty pretty out of there. But it's
Mhm.
we're talking about like a 1E or something like that, just to like. It's just like kind of like a cigarette's amount of smoke, I guess. Is just like you're getting a little buzz, and that's about it. And that's all I really care to do in the daytime because it just I get way too tired, or especially if it's an indica strain, but a sativa strain works perfectly. And for everybody wondering, no, I'm not high right now. um,
Me either. But I
but
did want to talk about that because like uh I feel like that's where society is headed um as a whole. Uh the effects of marijuana, everybody and their mom seems to do it. And when I worked, and we can get into it, I worked at a CBD store for one about a year ago, and seemed like everybody and their mom was coming there. It was pretty crazy. It seemed like principals and students and principals and their students walking in at the same time. Substitute teachers were like one of the biggest customers. But I just wanted to make sure I say this in this podcast, just because, like, I feel that the world at this point is underplaying the effects of marijuana. Now, whoa. Before like anybody says like, oh, because alcohol is bad, and all of those other drugs that are used more than marijuana, clearly have their effects, but marijuana is very low, very, very low. It's like probably the last thing on the list of dangerous drugs, but doesn't mean that it doesn't have an effect. And that's one thing that I learned working at the CBD shop, was basically that these people would preach it as like non-addictive or whatever. First of all, anything is addictive. You can make anything addictive. Anything that you can make a habit can become addiction. And so that's what I began to notice. And that's actually why I left, because I was like, at this point, like, I don't want to sell you this stuff. It's obviously you're going broke.
Yeah, so we'll just take off from where you were going at.
So yeah, basically I started seeing the addiction in certain people. Like these people would drop $200-300 in the store, man. They would talk about how, yeah, man, I'm not doing so good financially, but they're still dropping the same like $100 on all of these different types. Cause now there's Delta 8, Delta 9, 10, 11, all these weird HHC, HJL. Like, I'm like, okay, guys, let's calm down. But so we're getting all of these highly cerebral strains that are, if close to a marijuana, not just close to, but even like more effective and more cerebral than marijuana would be. And so at that point, I'm like, people are not even doing it for like that, the same thing. They're just doing it to get a certain experience. It's not even about like getting the effects of what the beneficial effects of marijuana. But that was just me. That was just like a little preface I wanted to make before we get into how cool it actually is, because it is all low on that list and it can help a lot of people, but it should be used as a medicine, not something that is like, not like drinking water every day or taking a salt flush, which you should be doing every day.
I smoke to get my 90 essential nutrients. I don't know what you're talking
Could you
about.
imagine? I'm gonna go smoke my tangy tangerine blunt. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. And I know, did you want to talk about the terpenes, or did you have anything to say before we get into that?
Well, how long have you been working at that store? Or how long? I mean, you're not working there anymore, are you?
Mm-mm.
So yeah, how long did you work there?
I worked there for about March to August. Yeah. And yeah, it was not that long. But uh it was, I learned a lot. It was extremely, extremely interesting. Just studying the benefits of plants and studying the just how even normal fruits, vegetables, anything, any phytonutrients or whatever, how it affects your body and how it affects your mind. My favorite thing, and I'm gonna keep saying it because it's such a cool word too, terpenes. And I don't think a lot of people really know. Well, obviously I didn't know, so I don't think a lot of people know terpenes and what they are. But they're essentially, you have an essential oil, right? So you got lavender, right? And when you sniff that lavender or consume it or do whatever, you get a certain benefit, like lavender, sedation, and also, it smells good. Um, so you're getting a specific aroma, and you're also getting receiving a specific benefit. Those are terpenes. Terpenes are basically essential oils that are in any type of plant that you can think of. Marijuana has over, I'm not really sure, don't quote me on it, but it has over 100 different terpenes. And we haven't discovered all of the different terpenes. Well, we know what they are, we can identify them, but we don't know exactly what they do in the body. There's a couple that are very prevalent. And it's caryophyllene, uh, linalool, which would be in lavender. And so linalool is known. It's also in on like an indica strain of marijuana. But linalool will obviously give you high sedation. Caryophyllene is found in pepper and it's leaving me. I think just any type of mostly things that contain capsicum. And there was one that starts with an M, but it's found in mangoes. I'll look it up in a second because I really want to say it, but it's basically found in mangoes. And you know how most vacation drinks or whatever, they'll have like tropical flavors like mango, pineapple, and stuff. All of those contain this terpene, and basically that terpene not only enhances the effect of the sedation and the cerebral effect of marijuana, but it helps with like anxiety. It helps with um most mental conditions that everybody's dealing with nowadays. So that's could be why it's so addicting in a way, because it's taking that away from you. It's taking that stress of dealing with whatever you're dealing with in your head, and you're able to actually relax for once. There were so many times where people would come in, these people would have migraine headaches for days, so intense that their head, like, it would be numb to touch, like not even numb to touch, it would be painful for them to touch anything around their head. And I remember this one occasion where this lady came in and she's clearly going through it. She could barely talk. Her words were slurring, but she wasn't drunk or anything. She just couldn't think because she was having a migraine. And I gave her a gummy because that was the only thing she could really consume. She didn't like smoking, which I understand. And we were talking, and like within 15 minutes, like she just started crying, like out of nowhere. I was like, "Oh, are you okay? Like, what did I do?" Because I was still new, but I just knew my stuff. And she started crying, and then she started like hitting her head. It was I was a little off, but I was like, "Whoa!" But I understood it. Like that was the first time in her life that she was able to uh actively get rid of her migraine without crying herself to sleep and waking up, hopefully waking up without a migraine, basically. And so, in that way, I would say absolutely take the CBD cannabis, whatever you need to get rid of that migraine. But all of these people were still not addressing that issue. It's still marijuana. It's so good, but it's being treated the same way that the pharmaceutical company would treat the drugs that they prescribe for people. They would use it, and they're like, "Oh, the doctor says I had to use it, so I'm just going to use it." And oh, boom, my condition is gone. I don't have to worry about it anymore as long as I'm using the CBD. So it's not like they're still not making that connection, and everybody in that industry was so delusional in that fact, because they were like, yeah, we're herbal doctors now, like we're helping people get off of pain prescription medication. You're getting off of prescription medication to get on an herbal prescription medication. It's no difference. And I tried to make that connection, but I could see that where it wasn't going that way. I even got Ryan involved. We were supposed to get like Ryan get influencer. He was supposed to be an influencer and basically start pushing CBD products. But one thing that I started seeing was like the products weren't coming out as clean as I thought, well, as they were initially. And two, that problem that I just stated, like people weren't actually using it and changing their lifestyle. They were using it so they can stay on the same lifestyle. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, it's in my strongest opinion that if weed's legalized, that the state of American health is going to get drastically worse because people just don't target their health problems. That was my own story. I mean, I was smoking weed for such a long time in my high school. I just
yeah,
wouldn't really care about what I would eat or what even happened in my life. I mean, I was just, yeah, it's totally missing the root cause of everything. And this goes for every single herb, by the way. It's not even just weed. It's, tobacco and all these other
Hmm.
things, all these other different herbs. I'm not an herbalist, but by any means, there all these people, the whole Dr. Sebi thing and going on a
Yes.
vegan lifestyle and all this stuff. I mean, you can get wonderful results by going on some type of herb right away. Usually it's just short term benefits. You have diabetes and you take some cinnamon, and all of a sudden you feel a lot better. But
Hmm.
that's an herbal effect, plant medicine that has a type of reaction in your body whenever you consume it. Now, I'm not saying herbs are bad. I'm not saying much better than the pharmaceutical route, right? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah,
but
let's say that, like, I'm not saying
uh,
cannabis is bad, but it can be bad. I feel like everybody is missing the point that, like, this is something that I started preaching before I stopped my account, was basically everything in moderation. And that's hard to kind of understand because everybody has different types of their own what they see as moderation. But um I feel like once you get on the protocol, once you actually change your life and understand what you're putting into your body and how it affects you, your body is not just, because at a certain point, for the sake of sanity, there I feel like there's certain pains and um aggravations that your body just starts to ignore, and you go on and don't even realize it. It becomes a joke, and they don't really notice it until they change their life and, like, oh yeah, my knee feels better. How can I move it so much now? Or something, like I could just hop right out of bed or something like that. And then that's when your body can communicate with you. And that's when you can actually, it's funny because Ryan says it. He's like, that's when your body can speak to you in English. Like, you know exactly what your body is needing. And once you clear out all the convolution, you start to see, like, oh, I need this, oh, I need that, and then you start picking those things, and that's when I say, like, that's when you can use the moderation thing, because you know your own limit. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to, like, say that.
no worries. So I don't have so much knowledge behind so many different all of cannabis and all this stuff, but one of the newer things that kind of caught my eye these days in these stores. So you earlier mentioned the whole Delta 8 thing.
Hmm.
Now, I've heard that my friend had went and got it, and he said it wasn't like nearly as good. I've heard some people get like headaches. Some people, I don't know. To me, it's when the state is in charge of growing the herb, producing it, controlling everything about it. It usually becomes a really mass project where they're going to be starting to use mass agricultural things that are prevalent in cornfields, for example. I
Yeah.
mean, they're the glyphosate, and the pesticides. That's something that kind of touched me, and I want to know, like, have you ever thought about this before? Like, what if I'm smoking a pesticide? Is this having like some type of effect on me, and something like that?
Yes, that's absolutely. This is the same thing as, because I started to learn the process of how they make things, and there were some things that just didn't stick with me. And so, like, you're smoking, and it doesn't even matter, like, if it's like organic or whatever, because it's still next to fields. Like, the one thing that pisses me off, if I say, there could be a monocropping farm right here, right? Next to it is the organic farm. All it takes is a simple gust, a simple east wind gust, for all of those pesticides to go onto the crops, on the marijuana, on the
Yeah.
organic field. And it's all in, like, California and stuff. And they're not just growing, they're not just growing marijuana in California. Our agriculture is coming from California as well. And so these winds can blow all of this stuff. miles away. And at this point, it's becoming the same risk, not the same risk, I shouldn't say, but the risk is rising, just like how tobacco probably started off as something that wasn't as bad as it is now today. It's just this chemical collage of things. And that's what marijuana is turning into under the state supervision, because they're just trying to get that feeling, just anything that will make them money, because we're obviously not doing good. And we need some type of flow of money, some type of cash flow. And marijuana is an excellent cash flow. Everybody loves it. Nobody sees a problem with it. Even doctors are starting to recommend it. So many doctors came in, actually. So many people got recommended by their doctor to come in and try some CBD and stuff like that. Obviously, they wouldn't stick with CBD because it's in our sales model to be like, hey, what else do you want? And so that's how that's kind of how it goes. Like, people come in for a simple thing, but they see all of these different things. I remember we sold like edibles. The edibles would be like Rice Krispie treats, cereals, donuts, candy, anything, drinks. And you were talking about the smoking. I'm getting carried away, but yeah, like smoking, you're going to get that. It's all in your lungs. And what people love to do with smoking, what do? They hold it in to get that experience. They're like, oh yeah, definitely getting all of the all of the marijuana I could possibly get in my lungs absorbed. It doesn't work like that. And then they blow it out. That becomes tar. That becomes tar in your lungs, and then you'll notice that after a while you
Is
get a
there
cough.
like a certain threshold, like how long you're supposed to hold it in, or are you even supposed to hold it in at all?
Uh, I'm not actually sure. I would say that in the first couple of seconds, so like the 1 to 3 seconds, that's all you really need. Because think about uh we're gonna think about it in like the same process as the gut. So like, you know how the gut has little villi and it reaches out and touch and grabs the food particles. So the capillaries in the lung, all it links, it gets to all of those it only has so much to like get layered on. So there's a layer of smoke already there, and there's just stuff sitting in there. So the longer it's sitting in there, it's not actually like, you're not actually really absorbing anything. You're just making tar, because it's just gonna clog it up. It's gonna stack on top of it. And so I would say, because there's a certain point as well to where it is clearly free radical damage, but there's higher amounts of free radical damage the more you hold it in. So I would say like 1 to 3 seconds is enough. You don't
I'm-
really get much benefit from holding it longer than that, except bad cough and some nasty spit.
And I believe that for, in my own opinion, that I get the best, I guess, like hit or whatever whenever I take it and then I inhale through my nose, because
Mm.
inhaling through the nose, it expands like your lower part of the lungs, so you can actually get
Mm.
more of a reach in your entire lung. But I've never like yeah, I used to like when I was first getting into it, just like hold it in for maybe like longer than 4 seconds, which is like, yeah, buildup of tar or whatever. But we're talking about like smoke and the weight of smoke compared to like I mean, we're talking free radicals, and free radicals are present in the bad foods. So the like one French fry, one fried foods and oils and stuff
Mm.
like that. So these have loads of oxidative damage that you can't really out supplement, and it just weighs too much. The weight of one French fry equals about the weight of smoke from a pack of cigarettes or
Yeah.
more, or something like that. So like just from one French fry, you're getting more free radicals than a pack of cigarettes, which is crazy. Like I was eating French fry, a whole thing of French fries. I mean, that's a ton of cigarette smoke, but obviously they're not the same thing. But we're talking about free radicals and load of free radicals, and it
Mm.
does go by weight. So compare weed smoke to with weed, it's not like tobacco, it's not like vaping or anything like that, where I mean, vaping is the worst in my opinion, just
Yeah.
because you're sitting in your room and you're consistently hitting this 50 milligrams of nicotine. I was on that for a little bit. Actually, in high school, I remember I just sat in my room. I mean, you're just cranking on it. I mean, I used
Yeah.
to just do like maybe 6 milligrams, like a box modification thing. It's basically like a big battery with a tank on it. You can blow a lot of clouds and stuff, so it's like cool or whatever. But everybody eventually switched to these little Soren devices, and they
Yep.
50 milligrams of salt-based nicotine, which that's crazy amount of. I mean, salt, like
Mhm.
salt helps you absorb stuff, whatever. So I'm not an expert in how salt, you know, ties in with this nicotine thing, but it is so addictive compared to just even cigarettes. I mean, um, for a cigarette, you have to go outside and smoke. At least for me, I have to go out and smoke and take about 10 minutes out of my day. And I don't really care to go out. Like a lot of what keeps me just staying at the same amount every single day is just because I don't care to go outside and take the time to do it. That's the only thing that's like holding me back from further going that route. And for people that are listening, it, they thinking that I'm a health guru or thinking I'm not. I'm doing the whole nutritional thing, right? I'm avoiding the bad foods. I'm taking all the nutrients. I'm doing the salt flush. I feel great. I'm taking extra antioxidants, extra probiotics. You know, I'm not saying, I agree with every single person saying smoking's bad for sure. It's got free radicals in it. It does some type of damage in your body.
Mhm.
But I said with Ryan on this topic that uh, 95% of people that have gotten lung cancer have never smoked a cigarette in their life, and they haven't been around people that smoked in their life even. So like the secondhand smoke is studies just suck in general, and this goes for anything. Weed, the study of cholesterol or salt and anything. The person that's being studied is not on the full nutritional thing that they are required to have for a healthy body.
Yeah.
They haven't been on that ever since they were born, and their mothers haven't been on that since they were born. So there's a lot of different factors compared to the animal industry and animal studies. And it's in animals, you raise the mother with perfect nutrition, and then they give offspring perfectly, and then the offspring get perfect nutrition. So there's a really hard control group right there. And I do need to refer Ryan's recent podcast, Dr. Wallach. They're saying how they're doing a study where they would put a rat like literally in a chamber of smoke, and just keep it. I mean, this is so
Wow.
unrealistic. You wouldn't be just sitting there chain smoking all the time. So they really cracked down on this,
Hmm.
and they could not reproduce lung cancer in these animals,
Wow.
uh, not once. So it's like there's no direct correlation, but that doesn't mean if you do smoke cigarettes, you most certainly want to boost on antioxidants and the selenium, or what Dr. Wallach would recommend. He said what the synaptive and double the 90 or whatever. I don't
Hmm.
know. I just boost on a couple of different things, but it, compared to vaping, I mean, I was heavily addicted to vaping. I remember getting off of it too. I'm so thankful I was able to just quit for good. And I think the most recent time I actually quit was when I was with my girlfriend. I'm not sure, my ex girlfriend,
Hmm.
and I had quit weed and 50 milligram nicotine at the same time. That was the worst decision I've ever made. One of the worst decisions I've ever made. There's been
Yeah.
quite a few, but I remember just how dark of a world. I had schizophrenia for 2 days. I was really terrible. I was in a paranoia state. If I'd have to like be playing this stupid video game on her TV. It's one of those. games where you're playing with the TV remote, and
No.
I'm like I'm just tweaking out.
Hmm.
And I remember the first night is just it's insomnia, and you're quitting both. I mean, at the same time. But I know there's 2 times I quit 50 milligram nicotine, and it's for sure the first night it's an insomnia thing. Uh, I wish I would have prepared better for that, but anyway,
Hmm.
I I just remember how dark the world was. It was weird. We were driving around. I was driving. That was a weird mistake again, but I mean, I was pretty okay to drive, I guess, and be focused, and I was hyperactive, I guess. But I remember going in downtown Duluth. It was like 6 o'clock, winter, and I remember how like it's like contrast just was turned way up. It was everything was much darker, and all the lights were much like contrasted brighter, I guess, in a way. Like it was
Hmm.
kind of if you see like an edited photo of New York City or something like that, and the colors and how they look, it was exactly like that. It was great. It was that
Like the
depressed.
Twilight Zone or something?
It was just yeah, it was just
Wow.
contrast was turned way up. It was great. It was everything just was much darker. And when we're sitting in her house, or I'm just like sitting on, we're just chilling in a room or whatever, and my mind would just wander instantly, quickly. I mean, within 5 seconds, if I wasn't like, just trying to focus on one thing, it would just go off into some severe depression, and just, um, I can't really remember too much. It didn't happen too long, but I remember getting over it. I feel like I feel like I smoked weed or something to get out of it. I did it for a day or two, but it's terrible, terrible withdrawal effect. And compare this to smoking cigarettes. I smoke right now, and it's not nearly as addictive. I can just say out of a personal experience, I go out 3 times a day to smoke, and I don't really have the urge to do it any more than that because it just takes up time, and I have way too much stuff to do. To me, it's just like a midday break more than it is smoking in and of itself. I don't really care. And, there is healthier things out there. Maybe I won't be doing it forever. Who knows? But to me, it's compared to eating French fries like most Americans, compared to eating all this junk food like most Americans. Much better off than I mean most people taking heavy antioxidants. I mean beyond taking tangerine tablets, people that don't know it's a 160,000 ORAC rating. I take a full serving every single day. So 160,000 ORAC points. It's crazy about antioxidants. But have you ever vaped?
Uh, uh, no, actually. But I've always been around. I've always been around it, but I would say like I never ever, because the people I was around were those type of people who basically be like, yeah, don't get into smoking. Um, and I don't know why. Like there was a lot of times where I could have started vaping, but it just I don't know. I I never it wasn't me. Like I didn't really want to get into vaping, but uh I was definitely into marijuana a lot. Kind of grew up on it and learned about it before I learned about the bad effects of it. And so um yeah, it I would say yeah, to answer your question, no, I didn't get into vaping, but marijuana for me, since we're talking about like how it affected our life, I would say that my withdrawal thankfully wasn't as bad as yours, but I did notice that like when I didn't smoke, my anxiety was higher. Like anxiety was actually never really a problem for me growing up. Everybody always thought I smoked, like in middle school or high school. Surprisingly enough, I only smoked like 1 or 2 times in that period. College is a whole different story. But yeah, like I was just always chill. I was nonchalant. I didn't really care about a lot of things, but I did notice that like when I started smoking, it kind of, I felt it, I felt a major difference when I wasn't on, like when it wasn't in my system rather than it was. And it started to become like my personality. And I felt like that was pretty dangerous. Like I had to smoke to go to a party, I had to smoke to do this presentation in the class, I had to smoke if I wanted to go and talk to a girl or something like that. And at that point, I was like, dang, I'm spending all of this money just to put up this personality, this fake personality, um, that I see as favorable. But yeah, I don't know. It's like I just started hating it because I felt like I was paying for an artificial version of myself. And I had to keep, like, it was a subscription. Like, get this free personality change. Talk to all the girls you want, go to all the parties you want, be the life of the party. And that's when I like kind of came back some. Um, and I was still heavily into herbs. So I think that's why, that's why I wasn't so bad getting off, because the insomnia wasn't really an issue. I just started taking some, some herbal tea before bed or something like that, and perfectly fine. I don't know if you heard of mugwort before, but I kind of did that sometimes, and it would help you have like these crazy lucid dreams, man. It was crazy. It was great. But because it was something that I could do that could still give me kind of the same effect, kind of the same fun. At night, remember when I used to look forward to going to sleep just to get that tea. It was like mugwort, and I would make like a loose leaf concoction of some sort, um, and have like these crazy dreams, and it felt like that was it. Like I didn't need anything else. And so I would say like, yeah, my withdrawal period wasn't as bad as yours. I'm still on like a tolerance break right now. I try to take as like much of a tolerance break as I can, and I only really use it for special occasions. That's what I recommend for anybody, because even hearing what you're saying about like nicotine and like marijuana effects, that's a scary thing. Like honestly, from a drug that's so known as so benign, so safe, that these effects still make sense. It only happens though, like when you try to get off of it. And to me, that's like it's got you by a chokehold now. Um, and I just saw like I feel like okay, this is the reason why. And this is probably not applying to you, and I don't want to like I'm not talking down on it in any way, but like I just remember uh, every time I was growing up, I just remember growing up, and when I would see people smoking, they didn't look happy, or they would always tell me, "Don't get involved with this." And there was a time where I almost did smoke. It was on a cruise, and these kids like stole a cigarette from somebody, and they were like, "Hey, you want to smoke this?" And I was like, "No," because I don't know. I felt like it made you sad. That was my opinion. Like, because everybody I saw smoking, whether it was in movies or at the gas station or my family members were doing it, um, they just looked so unhappy. Um, and that's just what I saw. I don't like to be tied to things that um basically like I have to do this to be happy, or like if I don't get this, um I'm gonna spaz out for the rest of the day. And that's what I saw. Like that's all I saw. So I was fortunate enough to see those type of things. And my mom, obviously, she's like the cleanest person in the world. um, yeah, she tried. She tried an edible one time too. She never did it again. But my mom was like a big part of that too. She kind of preached that into me, uh, to avoid that thing, and I listened to her. And I'm glad I did. So because I don't know, I felt like I would have been way worse if I started to get into those other things. I have friends. Um, Sad to say, I have friends that like didn't make it to 20 because they started off with the smoking and then it led into other things. And it's funny how people would say like weed is the gateway drug. That was like the colloquial saying, a couple of years ago in the early 2000s. It's like that's the gateway, but what I noticed was people smoked cigarettes first and then got into the other drugs. And that's what led them to the big C words and stuff like that, the big medical looking words. Um, and I would say that just if you're gonna smoke, you gotta like have a great understanding of who you are before you smoke, or it'll become a personality. It'll become something that you have to do in order to sustain the facade that you're putting on. Um, uh,
Yeah, no
yeah.
matter what, no matter what situation, no matter what person you are, you gotta have a drive, a goal,
Mhm.
something that you're working towards. I mean, yeah, people that are smoking are generally poor people, and poor people are generally in bad health,
Yeah.
generally speaking. But that's it's why they're depressed. They're trying to smoke their way out of whatever they're going through, and people go through so many different types of issues, and yeah, if they're just smoking away and not taking care of their current mineral deficiencies, because everybody's mineral deficient, minerals aren't in food supply, but they're it's directly related to that. And Dr. Wog talks about a lot about that, and I don't really care to talk about it too much because me and LaShawn both know about that. But
Yeah.
it's something that I recently had gotten into. I wasn't. I guess I'm more of like a person that would just get into like. I actually want to get a pipe smoke. I don't really like cigarettes that much. It would be like organic tobacco in a pipe
Hmm.
is like the best in my opinion, and mouth hitting it. That's like what I want to get to. I don't want to inhale it all the time, but it's a yeah. Comparing it to just other things in the world, it's not nearly as harmful as other things in my strongest opinion. So you know, we're not all 100% perfect getting on this health program. Is my I guess overall
Hmm.
point is that we're I, it's a lot of information that we give in our protocols. I tell you to quit 12 bad foods, do the salt flush, get on all 90 essential nutrients, and it can be a lot for people to cut out certain foods. And cutting them out one by one is one strategy, but I mean, the faster you go about it, the faster results are going to come.
Exactly.
Every single day, you have the opportunity to change anything in your life. And I have the attitude where I could literally just quit anything. If I wanted to quit marijuana tomorrow, I could. I nothing, but it's just like I use it only at night, and I don't really feel like if I do smoke an indica in the morning, it does toss me. I don't feel good. But if I feel good to like conversate with people, I just kind of want to be in like a bubble or something like that, and just kind of be zoned out. And that's the whole point of indica. It's not a conversational type of herb. It's not the use of that. So it makes
Mm.
sense. But seems like it's hard to find sativa strains. Honestly, around from where I am, I obviously have to go through black market because I'm in Minnesota. But honestly, if even if it got legalized, I would still be going through the black market route just because I don't really agree with the whole pesticide and thing and the whole processing unit when it cut from farm to shelf, and
Yeah.
then all these oils too. That's a big thing of a lot of
Yes.
these, you know, yeah, all of these vapes, vape THC oils. I was actually talking to Frankie about this recently, and Frankie's dealing with cancer.
Oh wow.
He's pretty young, and you know, I, he recently quit like you, but I was telling him I'm like, you know, what kind of stuff are you smoking? Right? So because dabs are oil, so that I mean they're still the oil from inside the plant, and as soon as the oil is extracted from the plant, it's oxidized, so it's creating free radical damage. Same goes for vapes, by the way. This oil you're vaping oil. It's not like it's oxidized, and then you're inhaling literal drips of oil. I mean, compared to smoke, it's much more thick. When I was doing it, I was blowing clouds, and that's the worst. That's worse. You know, just
Yeah, that's in your lungs. That's crazy. Yeah.
I had a big addiction with that, I guess. But yeah, I'm thankful I was able to get off. And I did want to just say that the dark night that I had, it was when I quit both weed and nicotine at the exact same time. And
Hmm.
it wouldn't have happened if I still was smoking weed at the same. So I always recommend people, do not do that. I mean, it's weed first or cigarettes first. You choose one or the other. If
Take it
you're on,
slow.
you know, even coffee, I don't really like being on coffee, so I quit a couple weeks ago. Uh, had a couple bad nights, couple bad days. It's okay, I always had it in my mind that this too shall pass, and I believe I'm gonna get cut off right now. So
Okay.
I'll have you back on here in a second.
And I'll close. So yeah, um, basically what I wanted to say was I felt like during this conversation I was talking down on it a lot, especially vaping and whatnot, but uh that's quite the opposite. I would say that everybody has something that they want to keep. You come into this business, this wallet warrior. Um, I don't know the word. I can't think of the word right now, but you come in here to get healthy. And you have things that you take and you use every day. You have things that you take and you don't can't fit it into your life. But I would say like live your life. As long as you're doing the bare minimum, and the bare minimum is pretty high. It's like the 90 essential nutrients, getting good food and putting that in your body. As long as you're doing that, I would say that like nobody can really judge what you're doing. It's your life. If you want to have a drink, have a drink. If you want to have a vape, have a vape. Just don't lose yourself in that. Um, that's just one thing that I wanted to, you know, put out there because uh
But
everybody like has to do something. I mean,
we're obviously not recommending you do it at all, but
yeah.
it's not a good thing. It's introducing free radical damage and whatever. It's one of our bad foods. I do recommend everybody does quit it, but yeah, it's something like you're not gonna be perfect right off the bat.
Mhm.
No, for sure. And when it comes to like vaping compared to smoking tobacco, in my own opinion, vaping is much worse just because just to wrap that up, you're doing it all the time.
Yeah.
And I felt super addicted to it. I mean, quitting from vapes was much. I actually tried to quit cigarettes not too long ago, but I recognized I got like it was pretty much just bad stomach pains that I was
Mhm.
getting. But it was just so like, I'm like, is this the perfect time to quit? Right. And I'm like, and I kind of slipped back into it. But then vaping it was much different. It was more to do in the head, a lot of anxiety. I guess a lot of the stuff is similar in the withdrawal effects, and I don't. I'm just telling you my experience, but it's just I feel like quitting cigarettes is more physical, but vape, I don't know. It's hard to say, but I feel like they both had the similar withdrawal effect. Um,
I just feel like you were saying it. It's like one is like more natural, and then one is highly processed. It's just like the food industry. You have like the natural foods, the whole foods, and then you have this boxed concoctions of things, and that's obviously not going to be as good. So like, yeah, I feel like you were saying it right.
no, I'm just looking at my stuff here.
Mm. Oh,
Um,
and I meant to say because I forgot that terpene name. It was called myrcene. If anybody wanted to look into it.
Mirror scene.
Yeah, it's also in chocolate. It's the reason why if you eat anything with cannabis, like any chocolate or mango or any type of tropical fruit with cannabis, it enhances the effect.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So like when there's a terpene in weed, how does somebody put terpenes in weed?
So it's just like you have like an essential oil. It'll come in like this little separate pack, and people just add the oils to the cannabis oil. So you're just making like a, it's already some in there, but it's not as much. Like if you want higher effect, then you put more of that in there.
So you just
So
drop it on the bud.
yeah, you can drop it on the bud. Sometimes it's mixed in the oil.
So
It's already in the food.
it doesn't
What?
make the weed like damp or anything like that. You don't gotta
Mm-mm.
do any extra process. You don't gotta let it dry.
No, you don't have to do all that because most of the time that's what dabs are. It's just like highly concentrated other because there's like limonene and stuff. There's a bunch of stuff that you can just add to it. It's already mixed in. That's how it gets its name. Like usually the one with limonene, like limonene is another example. So obviously a sativa, a lot of people get headaches. But basically you're just it's already in there, but you're just like adding to it. It's just an enhanced effect. There's actually, and anybody that's trying to get off of vaping, there's actually terpenes, just straight terpenes that you can smoke. And that is still like the effects of the free radicals, but it's not as bad and it's not addicting because it's already in the foods that you eat. You're just having it in higher amounts.
It's
So
like
it's
that.
just like, hmm?
Sorry, it's like that boom boom sniffing thing.
I've never heard of that.
No, you haven't. It's like a little stick that you can.
It's like,
Um, yeah, it's actually. I tried one when I was at Ryan's house. It was actually really cool. It's
yeah.
a little stick, and you put it in your nostril, and it's like a yeah, it has a terpene effect. I feel like that'd be. I mean, that's a really good product. That's something I would sell myself, honestly,
Hmm.
just because. Yeah, you're definitely gonna have a terpene effect if you inhale something like that, like with that, and you still get the effect, but with the weed particularly, they mix together, they blend together. That's really interesting to me.
Yeah, it's extremely, extremely interesting. You can learn like different makeups have like different sets of terpenes and different sets within that interact with each other, giving you a whole different effect. But if you want to have a good night, I would just always say chocolate is the best way to go. It's got the same amounts, um, if not more, of enhancing terpenes in it as cannabis would. So it's like the perfect pair. That's why so many things are chocolate. Just a little side note.
Yeah, I've realized every time that I don't have like I can't taste like a strong terpene or something. It's not like that great of a weed, or like I don't get too much of an effect or something like. It seems like a CBD type of strain or something like that. But the stuff I currently have is it has like a fruity kind of flavor to it. It's
Mhm.
actually like I wouldn't I don't know where exactly it comes from. I would like to know where it comes from. I would like to do that, but in a perfect world, that's it's hard. It's hard to get connections to an actual grower. I believe there are a couple in Duluth or whatever, but I don't really pay too much attention to it. Again, I just nutrify the body. Whenever I get like a negative experience, people that getting anxiety on weed are likely experiencing something actually nutritional. I would have to say one, it's going to be either salt deficiency because weed actually depletes your water and water soluble nutrients. So if you're low on salt and you're just drinking away water, replenish with salt. I've had a couple of times that I got like a panic kind of state, and that solved it. And the other, if that doesn't solve it, it's going to be just eating something. You're just low blood sugar mixed with a high is not. You're not going to be in a good mood. I mean, in the first place, if you have low blood sugar, you're not going to be in a good mood. You know, and then weed usually enhances the mood, which you don't want
Yeah.
to in that situation. And that's what I've figured out, I guess, every single time. Some people can have negative effects no matter what, but and they just don't want to go to it or whatever. It's an herb. It's one of the many herbs out there. It's not like I mean it's a pretty common popular herb today, but I mean it's there's other stuff. There's boom boom, whatever
Boom.
that does.
I'm gonna look that up. That's funny.
You got
Boom, boom.
I want to know. So there's this new Delta 8 stuff,
Oh
I don't
yeah.
I don't know what the heck's the difference between Delta 9 is what is like the most normal, right? I believe.
Yeah, and filling Delta 9 would be, so you have Delta 9 in the middle. It's so stupid how they put this together, but it's Delta 9 in the middle, and then you have Delta 8, which is a mostly body sensation. And then Delta 10, which is more cerebral. And then there's Delta 11, which I'm not sure about. It started to be new when I got into play, but I'm not really too sure about what Delta 11 is. And then there's HHC, which is essentially found in the pollen of the cannabis plant. And they just got that. I don't know who just discovered that, but that gives you the same effect as Delta 9 would. And so all of these things, I would, the reason why it's not as effective is because it's being derived from the CBD. It's not like marijuana. It doesn't have a tie to it. And that's also what makes it legal. It's because it's sourced, the 2018 Farm Bill made it legal for you to get anything from that cannabis plant, and it's illegal. So they can just take THC and it's low percentage and basically have different ways to enhance it. So it is processed to a high degree. You can't get it without a lab, but um, it's also still made the same way, especially rosin. They take two hot plates and squeeze the plant together, and then what comes out of it is the oil, and it's like dark. And everybody's like, "Oh, it's so dark." And it's like, yeah, that's it's oxidized, um, but yeah, that's basically the whole thing around Delta 8. That's why it's not like the full experience because it's just going to be in the body. It's just for people that have like if you're anxious or whatever, or you just need that. How you have certain feelings like your head, and you just need to like release that tension in your head, or you got tension in your chest. You want to target those areas. That's what Delta 8, Delta 9, and Delta 10 are for. You want to have the full experience, Delta 9. It's not going to be the same because marijuana is a whole different plant altogether. It's got more terpenes, got more THC obviously, and then the cannabis plant is going to have the opposite. It's going to have not as much terpenes, less THC, more CBD. Marijuana, less CBD, more THC. So more interaction, and cannabis is more medicinal, I would say. It's just for the inflammation and to interact with your endocannabinoid system.
Uh, One thing I don't like too much about modern strains is the hybridization of it. How many crossed times it's been crossbred. It's
Yeah.
crazy. There's two of these plants, and then so it's at the bases, the land race. It's either land race or the the for all other plants it's called heirloom, but for weed it's called land race. I don't know why, but you have like your bases, and then they cross them, and then they take that new one and cross it with another new one, and then you just get so mixed up with genetics. And even if it was organic, if it's still a strain of
Yeah.
the modern times, it's going to be crossbred. And I do strongly believe that there is just some type of, I mean, crossbreeding is something that I feel like is what we can do it. So it's like, you know, not necessarily a bad thing in my opinion, but I feel like it just takes away from those cannabinoid, uh, the range of cannabinoids from the original plant, the original land race. That's 16% THC. That's
Yeah.
perfect amount of THC, or 10% of THC. Like if you were smoking weed regularly, 10% is going to get you high. It's perfectly fine. And it has that actual, I actually remember getting a much different feeling back when I was 16 years old compared to today. It might have been just my age, but I strongly believe it was because of the landrace strains that we were getting. We were getting strains that weren't really too crossbred. It was stuff like Blue Dream. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I can't really remember too many of this, but like,
You're 100% right, bro. And this is just like, it's funny, like it always folds back into the nutrition and how foods in the 1900s are way different, way less potent than the foods that we have currently. Same thing with marijuana and cannabis in general. It's the strains that were in the early 2000s. Everybody that comes in always says that, like, this has nothing on the strains, even if they are doing marijuana as well. But like, this has nothing on the strains that were originally produced, because it's just like crossbred so much. It's not even the real thing anymore. It's not the same thing. As you can't get the same blue dream that you saw in 2000s, and there's no way to get it back anymore because it doesn't exist anymore. Well, probably somewhere it'll exist, but you see what I mean? Like, you can't really track it back to the heirloom source. And even if you went to that source, there's no guarantee that it actually is that, and not just some marketing word, you know? So,
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see where you could get something like that because it's hard. I mean, there's like online sources, but I've done that once, by the way. I highly recommend people do not buy weed from the internet. I mean, from the dark web. You know, you go on Tor browser and you think it's secure and you think it's a legitimate sailor or retailer or whatever, and that's why I only did I think I only did $50. You know, you got to make it worth it for an internet order. And if you know, I don't want to, you know, you can't buy a dub, 2 grams. You know, but anyway, it turned out the site was a replicate site. You know, there's like 40 of the same site, and they're all scammers. And that's what I got. I got scammed.
yeah,
I immediately found out. I'm like, God, uh,
yes.
it's all right. And I, you know, back in the day, they would smoke a lot of. I hear like this whole news. I hear from just videos on YouTube, I guess. They'll be talking about how weed of um, like the differences between the female and the male plant. How people used to only smoke the
Ooh.
male plant. Now, what's the difference between the male and female? Is there like a difference in like how it affects your hormones, or I don't, you know, having healthy hormones is just having a healthy body. Healthy body requires, you know, perfect environment, or not perfect,
Mhm.
but you know, best environment, all the nutrients. But like, I wonder if it does have any impact on your, you know, your hormonal system by just consuming a female plant if I'm a male, you know, or whatever.
Uh, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of forgot. Um, I think there is an obvious majority of the plant. Like, I think it's majority female and some male. I'm not too sure, to be honest. But I do also think it's more to it than that, because once again, it was probably like that before. Once again, so it was probably, there were certain impacts that a female or a male plant would have on the human body, but um we're at a point now to where they're starting to throw out the sativa and the indica term, because um, everything is getting mixed up now, that it's no longer giving you that true indica or true sativa. When I was leaving, that's when they brought it up to the company. They were like, don't use the word sativa or indica anymore, because no certain people were starting to experience the opposite effect when consuming like an indica. They would get a sativa effect and vice versa. And so I don't know, honestly, about the whole male and female part. Um, what would say the difference is probably uh I don't know, actually.
So the male is the hemp plant, isn't it? Like the
Um
actual, like, you make clothing out of rope, all these
hmm.
plastics and stuff like that. So
So cannabis is like both. You're talking, when you say cannabis, you're talking about hemp and marijuana. What is legal right now, where we get all of our THC in legal countries from, is hemp. And so hemp has nothing to do with like male or female. It's just a different genus. And then you have the marijuana. That's, it's obvious, it's just marijuana, and it's illegal. But THC is THC. So whether it's in this amount, you can make it to where it's like this. It's just not, you're not going to get the same effects for some reason. I don't really know why. I think it's mostly because we don't understand all of the compounds within the plant right now and how they interact with the body. Uh, there is like a portion that is basically um so you have CB1 and CB2 receptors in the body. There's mostly CB1 in your brain, and CB2 is in the rest of the body. And so like what the plant interacts with and how is basically what feeling you would get. There's some, I believe it's antagonizers. So there's one like a marijuana would actually fully interact with the receptor. Meanwhile, the CBD would like stick on the side of it and hang out around that area. So it's not exactly you're not unlocking the full effect of it. And that's why that could be why a lot of people are like, hemp doesn't give me the same high as marijuana does, because it's different reactions altogether, basically. Uh,
What's going on?
I don't know. It's some guy.
Someone breaking in. You better go.
It's the pest guy, I think. But yeah, we probably have to go. I got to talk to him.
All right. Well, yeah, it was really nice having you on. We'll definitely have you on a lot more. And
Absolutely.
it's been a really nice talk, clearing up a lot of the fog of marijuana.
Mhm.
It'd be cool to get somebody that's anti-marijuana to have like a
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's all I've been doing. So
because like I'm for and against it, I guess,
Mm.
but I always hold a solid middle ground opinion about many things. But yeah, really nice having you on, LaShawn. I hope to see you more around in the health business.
Absolutely.
We're all open arms too. So
I'll probably make a comeback soon. It's not guaranteed, but it just depends on, I don't know. I'm working out some things, and we'll see. And we're doing some things behind the curtains as well. But we'll see what happens in the future. 2023, 2024. We'll see.
it's really exciting too. There's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes for both of us. So
Mhm.
yeah, and even if you don't, I mean, there's so many different holistic paths to take. Seriously,
Absolutely.
but yeah, really nice having you on. Well,
Um,
I don't want to hold you too long.
No, no problem, man. Pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, we'll see you. Have a
See
good
you.
time.